Hi, this is Carol Beecham from the George Memorial Library Genealogy Department. Welcome to the class on War of 1812. A lot of people don't know that much about the War of 1812. They might know that it inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner or be familiar with the Battle of New Orleans song by Johnny Horton, but that is about it. However, it is an important war and is sometimes referred to as the Second War for Independence. If we had lost that war, our history would be completely different. Because of our victory, our independence was secured and respected. June 18th of 2012 marked the bicentennial of the start of the War of 1812. When it arose, we were completely unprepared to go to war. The regular army had only 7,000 men with 20 Navy vessels. By the end of the war, there were 35,000 men, supplemented by more than 450,000 volunteers who typically served in state militia units. These volunteers were very important to the protection of the nation at this time in history. Listed on the screen are a few reasons why we got involved in the war. After the Napoleonic Wars were over in April of 1814, Britain had more time to focus its attention on the War of 1812. By August of 1814, they had invaded Washington, which is the only time we had a foreign invasion there. After they sat down to have a feast that was set for a dinner party of 40-plus people, they proceeded to set fire to the White House and the Capitol. President James Madison at the time had fled the city and nobody knew where he was. Before the invasion, Dolly Madison, the president's wife, saved this famous portrait of George Washington. After attacking Washington, the British set their sights on the city of Baltimore, Maryland. The only thing standing in the way of the British Navy was Fort McHenry. The fort was bombarded with bombs and rockets for more than 24 hours. Thankfully, the British were unable to defeat the fort and abandoned their attack. This is when Francis Scott Key was inspired to write the Star-Spangled Banner. He had witnessed the whole thing from one of the British ships in the harbor. Where to begin your search? Keep in mind your ancestor probably served in a militia unit rather than a military one. Militia units were local units and their standards of record keeping were lacking, so you may not be able to find any records on your ancestor. 16 through 60 is the most common age range of men who fought in the war, but there are always exceptions. The 1840 census lists vets receiving a pension from the American Revolution as well as the War of 1812, but remember, the early censuses only listed the names of the head of the household. In this presentation, I will be discussing the different types of federal records, including compiled military service records, bounty land warrant application files, surrendered bounty land warrant files, land patents, and pension files to help you with your research. Compiled military service records contain basic information about a soldier's career. At the very least, it will give a soldier's name, state, and military unit. These records were created to make verification of service easy for the pension application process. Information was taken from various records including muster rolls, monthly returns, payment vouchers, and others. Many volunteers only served a few days or weeks, so the information available is frequently very scant. Most compiled military service records have not been microfilmed for the War of 1812, so copies will need to be requested from the National Archives. The few that have been previously microfilmed are now available online from fold3.com, but you have to be a member to view them. Here's an example of a compiled military service record for Lunsford Wyatt. As you can see, it doesn't give a lot of valuable genealogical information, but it is proof of service. It gives his rank and the unit he served with. The information on the left was taken from the muster roll, and the information on the right was from the company payroll. There is usually not a whole lot to the compiled military service records beyond the basics, especially for the early wars. They don't get more informative until the Civil War. During the same time as the War of 1812, there were a few small Indian wars going on in the southern states such as Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and the Carolinas. The Creek Indian War is probably the best well-known one of these conflicts. Normally, the British and the Southern soldiers involved in the Indian Wars paths never crossed until near the end of 1814. This is when the British decided to make things more difficult for the Americans by siding with the Indians. They did this by supplying the Indians with weaponry and assisting them in important battles for a brief period of time. Since there was an overlap in these two conflicts, service records for both the War of 1812 and the various Indian Wars are grouped together under the War of 1812 service records. Bounty land warrants were originally authorized by the Continental Congress in 1776 as an inducement to enter and remain in military service. Later acts of Congress authorized them as a reward for past service during the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Mexican War, a variety of Indian wars, and other military actions during the 1850s. Bounty land warrants provide the right to free land in the public domain. For the War of 1812, bounty land was set up in the states of Arkansas, Michigan, Illinois, Missouri, and Louisiana. The government ceased issuing bounty land warrants after 1855. Bounty land warrants generally do not contain as much personal information as pension records do. A typical application file contains the veteran's name, age, unit, residence, period of service, and if applicable, the widow's or heir's name, age, and place of residence. It is best for providing proof of military service, especially if a veteran or his widow never applied for a pension. Surrendered bounty land warrant files. Usually, a veteran, widow, or his heirs sold the land given to them. Most veterans were already established in their home communities, so chose to sell the land instead of resettling on the frontier. So therefore, other people's names appear on the bounty land warrant. Because they often sold the warrant to an unrelated third party, these files seldom provide information about the veteran or his family. Surrendered bounty land warrant files are less informative than the application files. These records were filed by the year of the Act of Congress that authorized the warrant, the amount of acres, and the warrant number. You can get this information from the Bureau of Land Management's website, which I will show you later. You need to know the war the veteran served in when ordering these records. Land patents. One thing to understand is that bounty land warrants weren't automatically issued to every veteran who served. The veteran first had to apply for a warrant, which is what the bounty land warrant application files are. Then, if the warrant was granted, he could use the warrant to apply for a land patent. The land patent is the document which granted him ownership of the land. As I said earlier, bounty land warrants could also be transferred or sold to other individuals. Sometimes they were sold for pennies on the dollar. You can obtain access to land patent images by using the Bureau of Land Management's website for free. It will provide you with the year of the Act of Congress that authorized the warrant, the amount of acres, and warrant number needed to order a copy of the surrendered bounty land warrant file. This is a screenshot of the land patent search screen, the Bureau of Land Management website. You can use the website to discover if your ancestor, his widow, or heirs applied for a bounty land warrant based on his military service. In the location box under State, you will want to probably choose the option Any State rather than one of the particular states. It is listed as the bottom choice in the drop-down menu in the State field. If this option gives you too many results, you can always narrow it down by choosing a particular state. I did a search for one of my ancestors by the name of Richard Watts. There were a lot of results, but I knew that this one was him because I recognized one of the names on the document as his son. If you look closely, there is a small W in a box to the right of Richard's name. That W means he is the one that received the warrant. The other names have a P beside them, which means they were the ones who received the patent, which apparently changed hands a number of times, as we will see in the actual land patent image available on this website. If you look beside the Authority heading under Miscellaneous Information, you will see the Script Warrant Act that your ancestor applied under. Sometimes this will say other things like homestead entry or cash sale entry. Not all land patents would have been received under bounty land warrants. The authority refers to how they obtained the land. Anything that says Scrip Warrant Act will be military related. The document number is the warrant number which you will need if you want to order the record. Using this information, I ordered the Bounty Land Warrant application file for Richard Watts. From the application, I learned that he fought in the Battle of Fort McHenry, which was very exciting for me to discover. You just never know what kind of information you're going to learn unless you order the record. I will always print this page out and send it with a form from the National Archives when ordering. This website also allows you to see the land patent by clicking on Patent Image, which we will see in the next slide. The actual land patent tells me that Richard Watts was the captain of the 36th Regiment in the Maryland Militia during the War of 1812. It also goes on to say that he assigned it to Stephen D. Watts, who gave it to Aaron Webb, who also gave it to J.K. Severs. These were the names that we saw on the previous slide. Remember, they would sell the bounty land warrant for money if they didn't want to settle on the land themselves. It also gives the warrant number, how many acres, and the location of the land within the public domain. Where to get copies of bounty land warrants. You can order these records from the National Archives by filling out the proper form listed on the screen. Now, just to recap, if you want to order a copy of the surrendered bounty land warrant, you must know 3 pieces of information, which are the year of the Act of Congress that the application was filed under, number of acres, and the warrant number, or what's called the document number, on the Bureau of Land Management's website. All 3 pieces of this information can be obtained from that website, but remember, the surrendered bounty land warrant won't be as informative as the actual bounty land warrant application file. Copies can be obtained to discover the actions taken by the veteran or his family, widow, or heirs regarding the warrant. War of 1812 pension files. Whether a veteran or his widow received a pension mostly depended on how long they lived. Before 1871, the only people who could get pensions for service in War of 1812 were those who had been injured in the war and the heirs of those who had been killed. By the time the Acts of 1871 and 1878 were passed, which were based on service, most applicants were widows or minors rather than the veterans themselves. If the veteran or widow died before 1871, there probably won't be a pension. Pension records are the most informative, genealogically speaking, for this period. Applicants completed by widows or minors are more informative than one a veteran would have filled out. For example, the widow would have had to provide proof of marriage, including the date or place of marriage and usually the maiden name. How to locate a War of 1812 pension file. You can use indexes available on Ancestry, Family Search, and Fold 3. Actual copies of the War of 1812 pension files are available for free on Fold 3, but are only 82% complete as of right now. I think they are up to surnames that start with the letter S. Of course, the surnames I need starts with a W. This project has been years in the making, and it is exciting that it is almost finished. The pensions will always be made available through Fold 3 for free. If you are needing a pension that hasn't been digitized yet, you can always order it from the National Archives. We also have book indexes available in our Genealogy department by Virgil White that you can check. The index to Old War's pension files covers the Revolutionary period up to the Civil War. It consists of pensions to veterans of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps based on service resulting in death or disability. Use this index for regular Army rather than service in a state militia. The index to War of 1812 pension files would apply to volunteers in the service. I hope this class has been helpful, and as always, check militaryindexes.com to get a rundown of what's available online for the War of 1812, or use the Family Search wiki pages to better understand the subject matter. Happy hunting, and thank you for watching.